Hello people of YouTube, it's Deepak here, and welcome to DCS World 2.7.15 and Eagle Dynamics F-16C Viper module. Welcome to tutorial 15, Harm Targeting System Pod. Today we're going to talk all about the ASQ-213A Harm Targeting System Pod. It's a little pod currently installed on the left cheek station here, and its purpose is to provide kind of passive targeting information about surface-to-air missile sites, or in general radar emitters. And it does this by doing a bunch of geometry basically. It's an ELINT sensor which will pick up radar emissions and triangulate the source of those emissions over time. You're generally going to fly an offset to your chosen target emitter, and over time the HTS will pick up and build quite a detailed piece of intelligence about where that site is located. Also loaded on the aircraft today, we're carrying AGM-88 HARM missiles, two of. We've also got 2 fuel tanks, and I'm also carrying the Lightning AT targeting pod. And I'll demonstrate how the targeting pod can be used with the HTS as well in just a moment. Now, of course, this is primarily going to be used to provide more accurate target information than the HARM's own sensor can before launch, but it can also be used to pass target location information to other aircraft, and in the future we will have integration with the data link. That's not in the game at present. So let's jump into the aircraft and take a little look at our situation. We've got the HSD on the right multifunction display. Let's make it our sensor of interest here. I'm going to move my cursor over the sites here and EXP in, and you can see that we have a pre-briefed SA2 site up ahead, along with a few waypoints to find a little bit south of it. Actually, I'm just going to turn data link on, although there's no other aircraft here today. So we're going to take a little look at what this site looks like when we're using the HTS. So in preparation for that, we're going to go air to ground mode. I'm going to reprogram this page to be the HAD display, and you can see the HAD is currently off. If we look at the right console, before employing the HTS, we need to make sure that the left cheek station is powered, and at this time I'm also going to power the right cheek station, because that's where our targeting pod is. And after a little bit of time, the HAD, well, the HTS pod will boot up, complete its self-test, and then the HAD will appear. And the HAD stands for the Harm Attack Display. On the right-hand side here, we've got the Stores Management System. I'm going to go ahead and power on my HARM missiles, and then I'm going to actually reprogram this page to be the weapon page, and we'll get the standard HARM weapon display. And there you go, you can see the HAD has now booted up. So if we go and focus down on the HAD here, let's take a little look at the symbology we have. Now, this is designed to look a lot like the HSD. It's intentionally very, very similar, and we've got the ranging rings just as you have on the HSD, and they can be zoomed in and out. The other symbology that appears is, again, the same as you see in the HSD, so if we had flight members, they would appear on this display in green. We can toggle the display of friendlies, only our own flight, and in no data link contacts. I'll put it back to friendlies on. A lot of the other options here are not implemented. TM doesn't do anything, memory doesn't do anything, TI doesn't do anything, and this GS option doesn't do anything. So we can ignore all of that. If I make the HAD sensor of interest, then just like in the HSD, I can make use of expand modes, and here we can see that I have 2 emitters. I have a search radar and an SA2 tracking radar. Now both of these are appearing in yellow right now. Yellow tells us that they're in search mode. If they were to turn to red, they would be tracking us. If they're red and flashing, they have launched and are supporting a missile. And if they turn green, that means they're currently offline, and that's in effect a memory mode that we have. Now the other thing that we can get up is if I move my cursor over one of these targets, I get information about that specific target. So just now I've got the bearing to the target, I've got deviation in long and short axes. Now I'll need to explain exactly what that means. The positions that are displayed on the HAD are approximated, and they are generated based on triangulation. So the longer that we pick up signals from these sites, and the greater our offset to the sites, so i.e. we want to fly far to the right or left of the sites, preferably perpendicular, and then we'll get more and more accurate ranging information. So on the long axis, so that's going to be an axis extending from our aircraft across the target, the deviation is 9.9 nautical miles. So we know that there's somewhere within a circle that is 9.9 nautical miles long in this direction, and in the short axis it's 1.6 nautical miles. So it's like an ellipse. It's kind of skinny here and longer here. So if you can imagine this, we would have an ellipse that looks something like this, and that's somewhere within that ellipse is this currently defined target. We then also have the current quality of the target. So PGM 5 means very, very low confidence about target position. PGM 1 would be the best. We're currently on PGM 2, which is good enough to launch a missile really and have a good chance of getting a good impact. And then the other information that usually appears here is the arm status of the missile. Let's go master arm on, and we'll now get confirmation the missile is armed. Let's pop out of expand and back into the normal view. We also have the option here to change the display mode, so we're currently in depressed. If we click it, we'll go central, or centered, sorry. Depressed is normally going to be the way you want to use it. Norm is just for manually targeting the expand modes. If we go into the threat page, we can reduce the number of threat types that the HTS is searching for, and as we reduce this, the search time, it gives us a little summary of the search time here, comes down. This is pretty much the exact same functionality you have on the Harm. And so if you know the types of targets you're looking for, you can reduce the classes and get faster scan times. The class types are defined in the manual. I think they're also in the Chuck's guide, and there's also a forum post on Eagle Dynamics forum about what these different classes are. We come out of the threat page, we also have the control page, and the control page allows us to control what information appears on the display, and there are 2 pages worth of this. This acts in pretty much exactly the same way as the HSD, so I wouldn't go over that too much. So yeah, and then the only other things in here that are actually functional are the range, which I can toggle, and the display of friendly units. So how do we actually make use of this page? The first thing that we can do is, let's put our Harm into position and EOM mode. That's going to be the standard. You'll see that we have the Harm employment envelope here displayed in front of our aircraft. If I switch into range unknown, you'll see that it shrinks a little bit because we're not using a loft in that mode. And if I put it into pre-briefed, we get a very skinny envelope, because for that mode you have to be facing your target, but you get maximum range and maximum loft. We're going to leave it in EOM because that gives us a lot of flexibility in the employment of the weapon. And you don't need to worry about the normal search parameters that you would have below the line here in HTS mode. Sorry, in kind of the Harm as a sensor mode, because we're not using the Harm sensor to pick up this target. So let's, as a first thing, put ourselves a little bit more perpendicular to the target so that we can get better resolution on that target position. So I'm coming out of active pause, and we're going to deviate to the right. Let's put them at a nice angle to us, so we're not flying head on. There we go, we've just been locked up, it would seem. So I'm going to active pause again at that point, and let's take a little look at how the symbology has changed here. If I get my cursor over this and I EXP in, it's currently still showing... Oh, there we go, it just updated as I was saying that. It's now updated to show a red target. And you can also see that our position uncertainty has changed. So even just the act of turning a little bit off target has refined that target location quite a bit. So I'm going to continue outbound. And then let's actually select the SA2. I'm going to go TMS forward. It's selected, and now it's gone red. Okay, let's pause again and go over this symbology. When we have a box around the target, that means that it is our currently selected target. When it turns red, that means that Harm handoff has occurred. Harm handoff means that we've transmitted all that target information into the Harm. So you can now see the Harm is actually searching for an SA2, as shown by the 2 in a box. We've got flight time to destroy the missile, and estimated time of impact if we launched now. We'll then have the range information shown up on the HUD. So here up on the HUD, we've got the AMZ, the Aircraft Maneuvering Zone. So this is the range at which we could launch the missile, but we must be facing the target and loft, so that gives us the most range. Below is the MMZ, which is the Missile Maneuvering Zone. This is the range within which the missile can hit the target no matter what, so we can actually launch sort of not even facing towards the target. We then have the azimuth steering line here, telling us where to go to line up with the target, along with the minimum and maximum loft cues. That's where we need to put the flight path marker to loft that missile. We also have the altitude at which the loft will occur if we tried to launch now. So currently the missile would launch as we pass 31,100 feet. And it's telling us that we need to go left 31 degrees just now to bring ourselves onto target. So let's go ahead and target this SA2 site. Also note that the harm box is flashing, which means we could launch right now if we wanted to. But let's do this properly. Let's bring ourselves on target and do a good loft. Right, we've just been launched on. Let's see if we can take him out before he takes us out. Magnum, and now off. There we go. And we've got time of flight now showing up on the harm display. Right, he's still tracking us. So that's a little bit dodgy for us. I might get killed here, so let's see. But top line here we can see that there's a time of flight for that harm. 44 seconds. I think we might die here. Yeah, this is pretty dodgy. Let's see how it goes. 25 seconds. I'm going to climb a little bit. Now, note that I'm not using my chaff and flares, and I'm not using a jammer. Oh, there we go. I think he died. I think we killed him. No, actually, not yet. Boom. And there we go. We killed him now. So that's good, that's good. Let's pop the aircraft back on autopilot, and let me just demonstrate something else. So while we had that target targeted, as we still do just now, it was our sensor point of interest. So if I go to my targeting pod, and I power it up. Oops. There we go. And, yeah, it's looking for target, that's good. Air-to-ground mode. There we go. I couldn't figure out how to turn it on for a second there. So we want it looking at the target, and let's go ahead and bring up the Black Hawk mode, and let's bring the aircraft around and look at that target location. The nice thing about this system is that anything that we define, anything that we TMS forward on the HAD will actually be set as the SPI, and you can then actually do your own bomb damage assessment using your targeting pod, which is pretty cool. Also note that both the 2 and the S now on the HAD are showing up in green, which means that's a stored memory location. They're no longer actually emitting. Although I have a search radar on the RWR, so I don't know what the deal is there. Anyway, let's continue to come around. And actually, I'm going to set sensor of interest to the HAD again, and let's just TMS forward on that SA2. There we go. Okay, so it's now looking directly at the SA2 site, and you can see it's turned red. It's done another handoff to the other harm missile that I have, but of course we're not going to fire that. Another little thing to note while we're coming around to take a look, while I've got that that SA2 site hooked, if I press TMS right, sorry, TMS left, oh dear. Yes, if I press TMS left, I immediately get the seed page up on my DED, and that will give the lat, long, and elevation of that site as generated by the HTS. So obviously the better the quality of the target, the more accurate these coordinates will be. But the great thing is, if we now wanted to follow up, say I wanted to send in a couple of Harriers with cluster munitions, I can now tell them these target locations, and they'll be able to go and attack that. And now, if I make my TGP sensor of interest, And let's just zoom in a little bit here. There we go. Look what we can see. We can see that site that I just attacked, and I can do my bomb damage assessment directly here, thanks to the HTS target location. So I can see the search radar is still up, I can see it turning, but the other vehicle, which was the track radar, is apparently destroyed. So that's a good job there. Good effect on target. So yeah, that is basically all of the functionality of the HARM targeting system. We have the ability to hand off target tracks to HARM missiles that we have on board, and we have the ability to generate fairly accurate target information using triangulation. Oh, and incidentally, if I press TMS aft just now, I will return back to the CNI page. So I can clear that display. So let's see if we can get the search radar. TMS left. There we go. I've now got fairly exact target information for that. And the targeting pod would now also slew to look directly at that target as well. You'll notice that sometimes the targeting pod is jumping. It's doing that as we refine the target location. So the targeting pod will move each time a scan is completed by the HTS. And that is pretty much everything. I hope that you all enjoyed that quick video all about the HARM targeting system. If you haven't already, please subscribe, like, and comment, and I'll see you all next time.